Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Friday night spooky sessions, where I read you a ghost story that's fictional and one that's based on fact, if not urban legend. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy your first story, a fictional one, and it's called The Hidden Playground. My son Eli found it one day while walking a trail in between two schools. It was a small patch of green surrounded by tall pines and myrtles all around. I didn't remember seeing it any time previously during our walks, but the place looked rather old. There wasn't much to it, just some swings, a jungle gym and a single slide. But Eli wanted to go and play immediately. Something about the place felt immediately wrong to me. It was too quiet, too still. There was a slow fog drifting along the grass. "Eli, be careful," I called out. Of course, being only 3.5, he didn't listen. So I sat on the bench nearby and watched him play. I took up my phone to check Facebook and Twitter, telling him we could stay for maybe 15 minutes at the most. And I needed to shoot a few messages to my mechanic and my insurance company. So admittedly, I was absorbed in business. As my eyes occasionally glanced up to make sure he wasn't getting hurt, I saw someone else standing there just on the outskirts of the playground. He was a tall man wearing a perfectly ironed white shirt and pressed dark pants. He was just standing there, staring, watching us. "Eli, we need to get home," I called out. The man was making me uncomfortable. My son whined, but listened to me as we continued down the trail. The man didn't stop watching us until we were out of sight. "Mom, I didn't want to go," Eli said as we made it back to our car. He climbed in through my side to get to the back seat. "We can come back another day, buddy," I told him. Truth be told, I didn't want to go back to that playground at all. Everything about it was just giving me a bad vibe. But I don't like lying to Eli, and I figured as long as the weird guy wasn't there, and, it would be harmless. So the next weekend, I walked him back there and let him enjoy it. He was smiling from ear to ear, and I noticed there were other children running about, so that put me at my ease. But then as I watched, I also noticed that none of the parents were there. There are 5-year-olds and younger. How could any parent worth a grain of salt just let them wander out there? This trail wasn't exactly well known. In fact, before we found the playground, I would say I almost never saw anyone. So where were these kids coming from? Their laughter was more intoxicating than the fog. I tried to approach one of the children to ask them their name, but they were too shy. In fact, they all seemed adverse to even talking to me altogether. I got that uneasy feeling in my gut again, and I called Eli to leave. This time he was even more upset. "I don't want to leave." I hadn't seen him this mad since he was sick, and I had promised to let him play outside. Probably the last time I'd failed to keep my word. Buddy, we can't stay here forever. Come on, I insisted. But Eli just wouldn't listen to me. He ran up to the top of the slide and sat down defiantly. I hated to be mean, but I didn't want this habit to continue, so I snatched him down and I scolded him. "Don't run away from me like that," I told him. Eli looked confused. I knew he still didn't understand why he always had to listen to me. It broke his heart when we left. The other kids just stopped and stared as we walked away. Like they were sad to see him go too. Another day, Eli told me that he missed his friends. "Which ones, sweetie?" I said. "At the hidden playground," he said. The name he gave it was disconcerting, but it fitted given the fact that it did seem hard to find. In fact, when Eli wasn't with me, I couldn't find it at all, even when I tried. "I don't think we should go back there again, Bud. It doesn't seem safe. That equipment is rather old," I told him. Well, I tried hard to reach a compromise and tell him that I would take him to one of the other parks around town, but Eli wouldn't listen. "It's special," he whined. He was getting to be temperamental, and as much as I wanted to make him happy, my instincts told me to put my foot down. "I just want you to be safe," I told him when he cried in my arms. Eli didn't talk to me for a few days. I guess he figured the silent treatment would change my mind. But I kept firm, and I didn't go towards that trail again. Eli got sadder and sadder, refusing to even eat or sleep. All he seemed to care about was going back to that place. It made me worried. Was there something wrong with him? He was always in his room, and he rarely came out. Finally, I gave in and told him we could go back one last time. You should have seen his face light up. He was like a kid at Christmas. He was so happy as we made it towards the creaky swings. But my defences immediately returned when I saw the tall stranger nearby. Why was he always there, watching these children play? "Eli, stay close where I can see you," I told my son. The man was approaching and offered to push him on the swing. "Don't touch my boy," I warned the stranger. "Mom, I'm going to be okay," Eli said in frustration. For 3 years old, he always acted like he was 30. "He is safe with me," the stranger agreed. "I'll call the cops," I said angrily, but the man paid me no mind at all. He helped my son onto the swing and began to push. The smile on Eli's face was so big. I was a mix of emotions, trying to decide how best to handle the situation. "Look how happy he is here," the stranger said as he stepped away from Eli and then gestured to the other children nearby. They hadn't been there a moment before. "They all are," he added. The way he said it made a chill run up and down my spine. Their laughter kept echoing in the still air. What is this place?" I asked. "I keep them safe until they're ready to move on," the stranger explained softly. He was looking at Eli and seeing him laugh. It sounded so perfect. "Move on?" I repeated. His words made sense, but they sounded hollow and distant. When they are ready, they stay here, he said. I felt my mouth go dry. My son got off the swing and chased after some of the other kids. Stay? You can't stay, I said desperately. My hands were shaking. I felt paralysed. I called to Eli to leave, but he wouldn't listen. It's okay to let go, the man insisted. He touched my hand and smiled. Eli ran up to me and tugged at my pants. Mummy, Mummy, there's a tree house and a merry-go-round. Can I go, Mummy? Can I? I don't think I can remember a time that he was happier. I got down on my knees and ruffled his hair. Under the hairline, I saw the scar that ran across his head from where the car had struck him. The truth hit me like a ton of bricks, and tears welled up in my eyes. It was time to let go. Sure, bud. Go and have fun. He hugged me as tight as he could and then ran forward to the tree line. The man followed behind and then nodded towards me in thanks. And a moment later, they were gone. I stood there a moment longer, transfixed by the sights I'd just seen, watching as the swings and slides faded away until nothing was left except the green grass. I go by there from time to time now to lay flowers down, and sometimes I see another parent doing the same thing, and we share a bond of silence over our loss. And sometimes I hear the children laughing, and I know they are where they are meant to be. That was The Hidden Playground. I'm now going to read you your factual story. And this one is called The Banzai Pipeline. Now, if any of you live in California, you will know about, you've got a place called the Waterworld. And this incident happened in 1997. I hadn't heard of this before. So for anyone who lives in California, you'll remember the story of the Banzai Pipeline. But for the rest of us around the world who haven't heard of it, I'll read it for you now. Well, in this story, some of the names of the incident are going to remain anonymous. Only certain traces of evidence, dates and occurrences will remain as they were. This is written by someone who worked at this Waterworld in California. I'm sure some of you are familiar with the water park attraction called Waterworld California. Before the water park was named after the state it was in, it was originally known as Waterworld USA Concord. It was Concord's first main attraction for decades and had been providing family fun for almost everyone. People from all across the USA would come here to cool off during the summer. During winter, however, it would be closed down until the next spring. And when it reopened, the park would always bring in a new attraction, which in turn would attract hundreds of thousands of people. Well, on June the 2nd, 1997, a group of high school students from Napa attempted to break a world record for the most riders on a slide. The slide that they would ride on was called the Banzai Pipeline, and it stood 6 stories high, right below the even bigger slide called the Cliffhanger. About 33 students marched up the wooden tower, pushing and shoving through the tiny vessel, ignoring every liability and instruction made by the lifeguard on duty. One by one, they all slid down the enclosed pipe, creating a big plug trapping the students, but they never made it all the way. Halfway down, the slide burst open from the bottom, making a horrifying sound of breaking metal and fiberglass. It plummeted the 33 students, who were 40 feet from the ground, onto the concrete floor at full impact, spilling blood all over the water and the concrete. All of the students got broken bones and severe injuries, except for one student, a 17-year-old girl, who was the last to go on the Banzai Pipeline. As she was sliding down the tube, right when it was breaking, she fell and hit the concrete head first. She died on the way to the hospital. After that whole incident, the area near the pipeline was covered in the blood of the 33 students that fell. That's when people began questioning, are water slides safe? From there on, Waterworld USA Concord took a turn for the worst. Sales went down and something had to be done. But after another season, things softened down for the park. People began to worry less and take more precautions, and by that time, so did the park, because they put up more descriptive signs, added more vigilance to the park. The park got off good, besides having to change companies 3 times and their name along with it. Well, in May 2011 was the month I applied at Waterworld, California. It was a pretty good job. The monthly pay I got was all right, but there was too much work, and everyone that works there doesn't really always get along too well at times. It always has to be someone not liking someone just because they're assholes. Well, since me and my friends were there by mid-season, mostly around June, July, my co-workers and I started to see and notice some strange things. And my friends and I were the ones that closed the park, and we'd always be told about the incident, knowing that we walked near the same slide that the girl had died on. The pipeline was the same as it was before the incident, although it was rebuilt and renamed. It was a regular scheduled weekday when I noticed the first strange thing. After a busy day, the evening fell. Sorry, I've read that wrong there. After a busy day, the evening fell with a strong wind. I was helping a co-worker with a trash run into the Luau Cove. We emptied 6 trash bins, each filled to the brim with garbage, put new bags in, and headed to the dumpster. There was a lot of wind coming in from all directions, except in the cove. Since there were 4 pavilions, most of the wind that comes in doesn't go through as much. The garbage cans were standing straight and stationary, even the slight wind pushing against them. But by the time we walked back from the dumpsters, we passed by the luau, only to see the 4 bins tipped over and the rest still stationary. I looked at my friend in some disbelief, since the only people working during that time in that area was us and no one else. We checked the kitchen and it was empty. The wind around that whole area was going in every other direction, different from the one outside of the park. We checked with our other co-workers, but they were busy with other duties as well. A couple of days later, we started noticing even stranger things. I was by the tube rentals on our lunch break with my co-workers when we heard a distant scream from a teenage girl. It wasn't joyous or a horrified scream, but a painful scream. A scream so painful that it gave me chills up my spine. I just couldn't move or say anything at all. We all heard it and just went back to work, very scared. Little by little, things began to occur. The showers would turn on randomly and stay on for long periods of time, when we were around. We would feel a strange presence among every corner, ride, or scheduled spot we would go to. These things had to happen for some strange reason. One day, when I was heading out from my shift, I managed to speak to one of the managers, explaining what was going on. Well, he told me it was just the spirit of the girl who had died wandering around the park by herself. She was going around the park screaming in pain, knocking on walls and windows, turning on the taps and showers, and even knocking things over. He even said that some doors opened on their own, and it was during the night that she usually does all these things. Could it be that our restless spirit still roams the park because of us? Or could it be something else? All I know is that when she comes back, it's only during the month of June and mid-July, around closing time. The night shift security and other people that have been in the park during the night time have also claimed of hearing painful screams from far away, and other odd occurrences throughout the park. The very same painful screams and occurrences still haunt the park to this very day. And since the park has a lot of security, I wouldn't recommend staying around after closing time. But if you do, stay alert and go at your own will. And that, my friends, is your fictional, factual story for this evening. So, what did you think of your stories tonight? Did you enjoy the first one, The Hidden Playground? When I found that story, I must admit it tugged at my heart. It really did tug at my heart. I had to read it a couple of times before, the emotions really sunk in for me. And I could feel, I suppose the sadness coming from the mother. But how did you feel about it? How did you interpret that story? What did you take from it? I know what I took from it, but I don't want to say it this moment in case I spoil how your thinking might go. I don't know which path you're going to go down when you come to thinking about that story. So I look forward to talking to you about it in the comments. As for your second story, I must admit, I'm not a huge fan of either water parks or theme parks, for that matter. There's always something happening. There's always some kind of safety breach. I mean, I'm not saying it's on a daily occurrence, but when these things do happen, there's always somebody is either, really badly injured or worse. And, when you're badly injured, it could be in such a way that it's literally life-changing. And then if it's worse, you've got to think about the ones left behind. having to cope, aren't you? I mean, no doubt that, there's provision made for little ones, and, you've got hopefully very observant parents who are watching them the whole time to make sure that they're safe. But then you've got older children, and then you've got young teenagers. And the teenagers always think that they know best, that they know how these things work. And I think they tend to forget that we were teenagers once as well, and no doubt we had the same attitude. But it just goes to show that nothing ever really changes, does it? You say there's differences in the generations, but sometimes if the young ones would just listen to us and hear us say, we were your age once, and we know what it's like to have that little streak of rebellion, feeling that we know it all. And these kids want to go to these theme parks and they want to go on these rides. And I don't think they understand how much we worry about them, But if you want to keep them, you have to let them go. You have to let them experience these things for themselves. So, but that was a particularly tragic story. I read up on some background, and apparently it were these students, I think they were ready, it was a pre-graduation sort of like a classroom prank. They were going to try and see if they could break a record, to see how many could fit inside this tube at one time. And this tube was only meant to take one rider at a time. And on this particular day, there were 34 of them. Now, the pressure that fiberglass must have been under would have been tremendous. So when it started to crack, and then bits of it breaking off, and then they fell to the ground, I'm very happy to say I'm very glad. I feel awful for the girl that was lost, of course I do, but I'm glad there weren't any more fatalities. I think they were all tremendously lucky that there weren't any more fatalities. But as I say, according to what I've read when I was getting, trying to find the factual story for you, I wanted to sort of check the sources and what have you, and they reckon that it is haunted. Definitely haunted. But no doubt any of the Haveners who happen to live in California, would you be able to sort of shed some light on this for us? Would you be able to, add to the story and let us know what happened, if you can remember? What will be 22 years ago now. So anyway, my friends, it's coming to the end of our time for another Friday. I really do hope that you've enjoyed tonight's stories. I look forward to what you've got to tell me in the comments. And, I enjoyed them. I hope you did too. And I hope you enjoyed the way I told them to you. So, I'm very excited. It's going to be our first live stream on Monday with my friend Erin. We don't have to have a live stream every Monday if you don't want to. We can make it once a month or twice a month if you'd prefer that. It's just trying to find something different, to entertain all of us. But if you tune in at 3 p.m. PST, 6 p.m. EST, And for people in the UK, it's 11 p.m. And we'll see you then. So until then, I wish you all a very, very happy weekend. And I want to say thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. And I will see you on Monday. Good night.